present our work not as a gamification strategy, not as a game-based design approach, but as an approach that starts from the premise that students or individuals, but in our case students, when they are promoted as game creators, when they are invited to create their own games, they can indeed develop some skills and they can start to learn more about the subject, the game creation process. So we started from a problem or a premise. Our project, this research and our paper is framed within the Gamers for Nature project. And the Gamers for Nature project is a project that starts from the premise that while younger generations are increasingly disconnected from nature, they do not learn about nature, they do not know nature. Some of our students never have contact with real nature problems. And as they are being disconnected or they are feeling themselves disconnected with nature, they are starting to develop a sense of nature and natural resources as something that can be acquired, that it's not something that we have found is that communication about the importance of biodiversity preservation and what it means in terms of ecosystem balance is not getting through. So through several science communication approaches, just like workshops or keynotes or even books. One other thing sustain and stand from is that promoting young people's environmental awareness implies working on strategies that are able to capture their interest and attention. We could create a game, and while playing that game, we could try to work on these students' environmental awareness dimension. As digital games are indeed recognized, there is an innovative approach to environment education, but we start from a different point of view. We want to challenge young students to create their own games. And while creating those games, they will be learning more about their local biodiversity problems, about world natural and environmental problems. And while creating the game and working on some elements, dimensions, just like challenge, they will learn, or at least that was our goal, that they would learn more about the consequence of having non-natural environment protection behaviors, for instance. So we have decided, or we have started on creating and operationalizing a set of strategies that would prepare and encourage active participation game creation in creating mobile games. At the end, there were desktop games, while promoting knowledge about environmental preservation and biodiversity conservation. Our target audience was upper secondary and university students. And so we have developed what we call the Gamers for Nature toolkit to game design. This toolkit comprises several resources. I will expose each one of them on the following slides. It was developed through a participatory design approach. We have invited experts in game design. We have invited experts in biodiversity and nature conservation to contribute to the creation of the toolkit resources. Undergraduate and upper secondary students in the design process. The toolkit comprises a collection of resources developed to support and encourage the participation of young public in the development of mobile games. We have game construction card set, 12 cards, each one addressing one specific game element. We have a rapid game design document. It's a kind of a blueprint or a proposal for path to explain cards, game constructions cards, and we have a set of thematic cards that address a nature protection and environment preservation issue. The game construction card sets, there are 12 cards, each one addressing one game element. We have players, objective, procedures. On the front, we have a question, and on the back about that game element, and on the back we have a contextualization about what that game element, how that game element should be addressed while creating a game. It is based on Fullerton's approach to game design, although Fullerton proposes 19 elements. Through these participatory design sessions with students, we have found out that some of those game design elements were too complex for students to comprehend. So instead of more confusion, we have just limited, we have removed some of the system elements, and we have somehow selected these 12 game elements. This approach was validated by experts in the game design field. These questions that we have on the front of the game construction card set cards, it includes the name of the game element, appears in the front of the card, is the question that through content analysis we found out that most students asked when trying to interpret it and validate the card. For instance, we would talk that premise is the story starting point, a scenario or metaphor that frames the game's action, and 2, 3, 4 students would say, oh, so that's how the story began. And we said, okay, this is what they need. That's how they interpret this element. Are the tasks that the player needs to accomplish along the game design to keep him engaged. Okay, so this is how to keep the player engaged. We need to create some challenge. So all the cards, all the questions that are on the front of the cards are questions that have emerged from the content analysis process and that were really put on by the students. We also have the rapid game design document. Initially, all these game creation cards, they are not numbered, and we wanted to propose an approach where students could create a game starting from the point where they believed it would be the best way to start. Students could start the game from for instance, from the outcome or from the rules, starting by defining the rules. But what several game design sessions and the toolkit validation process, it had involved lots and lots of students. What we have, we came to the conclusion that students at the end told us it would be easier if we knew which card we should start from. It would be interesting to know if we should start from the player card or for the outcome card. And as we have where students could freely explore the game construction card set, most of the students, we found a pattern, and most of the students started from the premise, the story, and the characters. And so we have constructed this rapid game design document. It's not a game design document per se, it's a rapid game design document that's a kind of a blueprint that may guide them. It's a proposal, a path for them to explore the cards while creating the narrative for their game. And we also have sets of thematic cards. One thing that, as I have told you, the Gamers for Nature project aims to address environmental awareness themes. And one theme that we, as a research team, considered it was very important, it was about microplastic pollution, because we all know the 4 R's, the refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, but we know that the plastic should be recycled, but some of us do not know much more about microplastic pollution. We do not know, for instance, that most of our clothes have polyester fiber, and that's microplastic that goes into the water flows. We do not know that some cosmetic products that we use some whitening toothpaste have microplastics, and these microplastics are not filtered on the treatment stations. So we have decided to address this theme, and we have created 20 thematic cards addressing microplastic pollution in 4 categories. Do you know that? That addresses facts about microplastic pollution, but after all, about the process, how do they come up, what form and secondary microplastics. Is it true? It's a category that addresses some myths about microplastics and take action, some suggestions for small measures that can have a deep impact. Why we have created these cards? We wanted the students, participants, to learn more about microplastic pollution, game, but we did not have the time to give them to explore information about microplastics, and they could come up with information that was not true. So we have presented them with factual information about this theme, and we already have other sets of cards about dune preservation, about natural parks preservation, about endangered species, invasive species as well. So the biologists and the environmental specialists create the contents, and students on the internet explore the cards and use the game design cards to create a game narrative about a specific theme. So we have implemented several game creation sessions with upper secondary and undergraduate students. We have created a one-day session with upper secondary students. We have created what we call long-term sessions because students were invited to create a game along the course semester. We have implemented this in a 72 hours online game jam. To the pandemic, we had to make it online. It was really a challenge. And we also have tested the toolkit with younger students, primary education students, in a short game design session where we had to adapt our toolkit for them to use, as some of them did not yet have all the skills to read and interpret the information. So our paper, and I will invite you to read the paper, it introduces the toolkit, it introduces the main results of using the toolkit, but it also presents the students, the participants' perspective about the toolkit and its use along the game design process. This is just one of the graphics we have on our paper. Most participants stated that the toolkit was very useful for the game creation activity, as it introduced to them some elements that they really weren't going to consider when creating the game narrative. It was easy to use, it was cards, it was physical, it was a tangible artifact. They did not have to go to a computer to create the game narrative, and it provided a good game creation experience.
Thank you, Monica. I would say that this is a useful set. I really need one set for myself already. I feel it. But I would also put one comment to the chat.
I can answer or try to answer your question. This is one of the main subjects that we have discussed along the project. We said, okay, we're toolkit, so they won't have to have a computer to create the game narrative. And despite of all that, we are telling them to create digital games and not going through in nature activities. So this was the first project that we had using this toolkit to game design. We have, in the meantime, it's already concluded with success, an Erasmus Plus project where students from 4 schools from 4 different countries have used the toolkit to create a game, but most of the knowledge or the game narrative was built around the thematic cards that their teachers produced addressing a local biodiversity problem, but it also includes a trip and an adventure in the nature field. For instance, one group from the trip to the Beça station was taking place, how some species were being endangered. So they were there, they looked, they knew about it. And then they went back to the classroom on the other day or the other week. They explored the thematic cards. It's kind of, okay, I saw, but why does this happen? And the teachers provided them information about what is happening, how deforestation is being caused. Created a game. And one thing, we have not presented that project on this issue, but one of the things that we are pretty sure is that the results were much more interesting and the games were much more engaging and connected to nature with the group that had an in nature experience activity and created the digital game.